Everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Thursday edition of my behind the scenes DM-only livestream crafting Icewind Dale, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Rime of the Frostmaiden. If you are playing characters of Valravn, Frey, Celeste, Edmund, or Thimbleweed, this is not the right stream for you, but for the rest of you, welcome. Of course, there will be some spoilers. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. Watch all of our sessions and reviews here on the channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Rogue Watson and join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. For our campaign, we use Roll20, and for streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs, and I think we're still getting ahead of things and talking about Ithrin. I don't think I need to really say anything more about Caves of Hunger. I am confident and at this point hoping that we can finish the events, finish that dungeon. This will be the 6th or 7th session in here, I think. Maybe the 7th. And I did make the little yellow lines indicating where the party has gone. Zoom back out a little bit. But we're going to start off with a battle with the Nothics, which originally wasn't meant to be a very difficult battle, but now we've only got half the party right here, so that kind of changes the dynamics slightly, which is interesting. I'm always appreciative of the party splitting up. Awkwardly, it does get weird when the party splits up and only some of them do combat, so you kind of have to use your best judgment as a DM. Like, you go like a whole round and then go back to the party and then let some kind of out of combat thing. At what point do you have the other party roll initiative? Because like at some point when they get, is the turn-based combat like a radius around the things happening? I feel like that's was it Divinity that did this too? There were games, it might have been Divinity, where you could still be real-time exploration, and then if somebody else hit combat, you got within like maybe a certain distance, and then you just automatically entered turn-based mode. There was a game that was like, it might have been the Divinity series, so I don't know how to best judge that, but probably at some point when they enter like the tunnel going into the bottom half where the actual combat is taking place, you'll have to enter turn-based combat mode. But otherwise, they'll be dealing with the Magen up there. And I mean, we're pretty much at the final room. There'll be this battle, the Magen thing. I don't see any reason. I've pretty much dropped the Drow, which I didn't necessarily plan on doing. But I think the more deeper we got into this dungeon and the directions that the party went, it just feels like a extra thing to add that is not going to be explored and would just add more and more time onto this. And, that's a good thing. I do appreciate when designers, adventure designers, dungeon designers give me more content than I need. Because obviously that's better than the alternative, which is what I often have to do in these 5e campaigns, which is add my own, especially with Rime, where I had to really add my own stuff to fill in the gaps. Whereas this dungeon, I feel like there's way more than you need in this dungeon, especially given all of the multiple paths. So it's easy to cut some of that stuff. And it happens that, unlike the vampire, which is supposed to jack with the party the whole time, the Drow are pretty much just sequestered in their one little corner. So it's pretty easy for the party to cut and ignore everything that's going on down there. And I just have to remember when we get to Ithrin that I did cut the Drow, so it might be a little weird if I mention them offhandedly to where they're like, oh, wait a minute, is somebody else in here? Or maybe that could be interesting, like that. Maybe that explains why there's some more Nothics running around. Maybe you could even have it where there was like another tunnel, that they burrowed into and found Ithrin, and thus you could just explain it that way. So maybe I'll keep the Drow in there and just ignore the fact that there was a bunch sitting here in the Caves of Hunger. But I fully expect the party to long rest after this Nothic battle, and possibly either they'll know that they need to long rest here or can, or perhaps they'll go all the way, realize Ithrin is there, and then double back, and maybe I'll have Baelish Gaunt and Islantamir show up and be like, hey, we think now is the best chance to hunker down. We've got a nice little choke point here at this cave that we can, put up the hut, and the Dryad could watch over us. And I'm leaning towards just not having the vampire show up again for a final thing, because I think it would just kind of drag things on a little bit more, and he's been more of just a random nuisance in general. Or do a funny thing that I was thinking of, which is have him show up, but then have, Baelish and Nast just like deal with him really quickly. Or maybe you could even make it a little bit more cinematically interesting and have the vampire, a bunch of vampire spawn coming, and like they have to go to Aether and we'll take care of them. And maybe that's a way to separate them again. or the Dryad can help because they've, maybe they've allied with the Dryad somehow. So I'm going to be very flexible on that. But and usually I'm erring on the side of, oh, I want this battle to happen. I really want to force things, and hopefully the players don't, do something that makes it so we can't have a battle. In this case, I'm actually erring on the case of, oh, I hope the players can figure out a way, or the DM through their allied NPCs can kind of suggest ways of maybe dealing with the vampire threat so that it's not, sitting there at their backs while they go on to Aetherin. Because at this point, I probably don't really need to run that fight. And, a lot of them have drained a lot of their hit dice and their spells. So I feel like the adventuring day of this entire dungeon has felt fairly appropriate. I mean, they've had, I want to say, at least 2 short rests. Because I think they had one in that tower and then they got the extra spell slot. I think they had one, which was Frey. They might have had 3 short rests. When I think about it, they had the one in the tower that they did pretty early because they got the extra spell slots. They're not, they needed a little bit, but not much hit dice rolling. They had another short rest after the Shadow fight, which is when Frey did not do that short rest. She went on and did the turn into a cannibal, or turn into a Wendigo creature. And then they did a 3rd short rest after that big fight, which lasted 2 full sessions. They plopped down and had to do another short rest, and that's when they all went through a lot of hit dice, except for Frey again. So they've actually had 3 short rests in this adventuring day. That feels pretty good as the DM in terms of, okay, now we're setting up and ready for a long rest. So all of that are factors into why I'm probably not really wanting to pull the trigger on the final vampire fight, even though it feels like it should have some kind of factor. So we'll do all of that tomorrow, but I think in the meantime, we are going to be talking about putting together some more Aetherin stuff, and putting together the towers, and using some of these awesome art assets that I've got, thanks to some folks for, let's see, in fact, Jason, I think that's you that sent me one of the maps. And I just got one from Nick Demnix, who sent a really cool force field version. I also remembered that I had purchased the Eventyr Games DM's guide to Aetherin, to Rime of the Frostmaiden, and that included a whole chapter on Aetherin, which included maps. I probably purchased this thing 2 years ago at this point. It's just been sitting in my folder, and clearly has forgotten about some of the later chapters and the content that it had for that. But especially Aetherin was useful because it didn't have a lot of maps available, and that's something we need to throw together, because all we have are the expanded Towers of Magic maps, which I still have to actually put on here, and then I'll need to add basically custom maps. Last time on Monday, we actually did a little bit of the Chain Lightning Stadium map, which I pulled off of Reddit, I think, and threw that together because that is something that I think the players will be very interested in doing, and I'll probably be expanding the rules for that. And it's literally pretty much the first thing they will probably go. I mean, you see this giant stadium with lightning, goal posts and all these things. Just it follows me. Like, if I was a player, I'd be like, yeah, we're heading that way. I mean, clearly you're probably wanting to head to the middle anyway, where the Mythalar is, which I'm expecting the players to do. I don't necessarily expect them to just run around and explore. Although, were there tables for that, or was I going to actually introduce my own table for that? In terms of just exploring. Because I know I did that for Tomb, and I looked back at the rules, and I did have full, hey, you can explore an area, and you roll on this table. I think you roll an investigation check. I had full-on rules for that. Also going to add... Oops, I'm still pulled out at 50%. This was a really good street map, which this is from Eventyr Games, Rime of the Frostmaiden. Let me pull that up on... Got a link for that. Let's see. If I can search for it. This one. This is the specific one, but it's part of a bundle. It's Doom. Yeah, Eventyr Games is probably the smart thing to search by. Provide a link. I am trying to always do that because I always get questions about where'd you get that map, and that's a fair question to have. All right, so this is the specific link to the Ithrin chapter that Evantier Games did. However, it is part of, if you scroll down on that one, part of the complete DM's guide, which is the one I think I got like 2 years ago again. But it has this really good town map, street map, which is humongous looking. I think it said it was 30 by 45. What it said. So let's probably 30 this way though. 30, 45. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, this is cut off. I think it's supposed to be cut off right there. It's kind of a slice of map. I mean, it's a really hard map because if you search for something like Necropolis, you're only gonna get like dungeons. And Ithrin is not a dungeon, it's a city, but it's like a half-ruined, destroyed city, and is stuck like in the ice and snow. So you don't have like the normal sunlight and stuff that you would get in, or like vegetation. So it's a very specific like tile set that you need, which is not easy to come by, at least from my rudimentary searches that I've gotten. I'm making sure it's actually cut out. No, it's not. It should be actually bigger than this. It's not 30 by 45, or maybe the grids just aren't lining up. I should have downloaded the gridded version then. Not sure. I bet you the grids aren't lining up here. Let's try. Now that I put it at 30 to 45, let's try fitting this one to. I don't want to align the grid. Or do I? No, I don't, because I don't know the actual size of it. Shoot. Well, let's set dimensions. We can set dimensions. Units. Let's go. I think it's because it's wider, so the 45 should be the width. By 30, let's see what that looks like. Okay, here we go. I think this is what we're looking at. For some reason it's one piece longer. Alright, I think that is scaled more appropriately, and the grid should hopefully line up with the buildings, which I think they do. Use that map in my game too. Nice. One thing I did for other maps for Ithrin is tint maps. So found online to something like a purple-blue tint. That's a good idea. This one, that is a good idea. And that's the reason why I like this one, is because it literally does that already. Like, it's already baked in to have kind of a nice purple-blue tint. It just kind of looks like it's got some ice cover and some rubble and some ruins, and then some weird, like, I don't know, magical shit, which looks kind of like webbing for some of the buildings. I think that's actually going to work really well. Thanks for the map link. Getting ready to start on the Frostmaiden Sunday. I'm intending using fewer ideas. Well, you're not going to need that one for a while, but you're welcome. I just about forgot about all my. Oh, there we go. I had it locked down one. That's why. Now it fits. Okay. This is going to be a really helpful street map. That what I'll probably do is cut off, do the Dragon Age 2 thing and cut off certain sides and areas to make it look like it's more than one map, but in reality I'm just using the same one. And I could sit there and even rotate it, but then I have to redo the dynamic lighting, so it's actually easier if I keep it oriented the same general direction. We can certainly use this pretty effectively. Draw some dynamic lighting on here. Turn on dynamic lighting. Not on by default. Oh, the barriers restrict movement is on by default. Oh, that's good. Maybe that's a setting I did. Not have daylight. I don't think... Does Ithrin have lighting? Let's see. It's going to be in the actual main section. I think there's continual flame spells that act as like the torches. Continual flame spells illuminate street lamps as well as building interiors and exteriors, which are essentially torchlight, I think. Equivalent in brightness to a torch. You're not gonna tell me what a torch is. I feel like a torch is 20/20. Is that it? 20 bright, 20 dim. So this one does not have street lights on it. I'll have to put little street lights, but that's kind of a cool magical effect that actually is lit up. But I'm actually using dynamic lighting to cover up a little bit of that, but should be. And we can use this for, like, the random Nothic battles and stuff that I don't. It's going to be interesting because I'm not a fan of random battles when the players get higher level. But hopefully we can come up with some good, kind of scripted random battles, if that makes sense. And, wandering around this area should be dangerous. It's not a sleeping city. And especially the change I'm making to Ithrin, I literally want it to be like a nuclear power plant on the brink of exploding, but with a bunch of monsters running around. So it's just all kinds of dangerous. Of course, we've got the Arcane Blight, which I don't think is going to come into play. It really depends on how often the players choose to long rest. I guess you could break up the dynamic. I'm still not kind of sure what's happening. Like the magic keeping the building around, but it's kind of breaking up right there. So maybe I should cut off. Maybe I should not have it be dynamically lit so much there. In terms of sight blocking, I don't know. Really just drawing squares around maps. I haven't had to do this too often in this campaign, and I do like my campaigns that have maps already for me. Awesome art and everything, but of course we're never going to have every map that we need. We're always going to need our little encounter maps. I don't know what this is supposed to be. Maybe a tower? Guessing it's some kind of... It's cracked, which is kind of cool looking. Really a dome of sorts. I don't know what it's supposed to be underneath it. Like a magical gazebo. I can't tell if this is supposed to be on the floor or the roof. Because obviously I'm just looking at it from the top down. If I just put a giant dynamic lighting circle around it, I don't have to worry about it. It's just going to be another building, so I might just do that. Like, instead of doing that, let me just draw a circle. Your way of going about it. Take a look here as I try to fit it into place. All right, so that should be good, and then we'll grab somebody that has dark vision and make sure they can see. Boy, this is a big ass map though, isn't it? Which is good because that means I can, again, cut off certain areas, and then hopefully the party just won't realize they use, almost the same map for every single thing. I think it's gonna work pretty nicely though. It won't be this dark. I'm gonna light it up with the magic. I don't know what should street lights even look like. Can I find street lights? Say street light or street lamp? Street lamp. Street lamp is a thing. Pretty sure. There we go. Something real fucking easy. Get to look. Oh, it'd be nice if it could be slightly lit up, but I guess I'm gonna be doing the lighting up anyway. Not cyberpunk. Funny, the streetlights are all modern. Modern. Okay, so let's just... Well, those are cute, but I don't think that's appropriate. Let's do this first one. Although I don't like the shadow. Why do people put shadows in their stuff? I mean, I I don't need shadows. There we go. Complete city streets. How does that look? Sure. A little more bright and cartoony, but I think it'll work. Flap those around the area. First, let's give them light. So emit light. 20 and 20. And we will put you... Some of them will be destroyed, so they shouldn't necessarily be evenly distributed. There, maybe put one here. Don't put anywhere there's rubble, is probably a good indicator. There. Put one at the edge right here. Send them to the map layer. This is basically the not so much fun work I have to do. Just the physical part of it, I guess. I'm not really doing any brainstorming or planning. I'm just maps together. That's part of the work. Could throw one on the other side down here. Right there. All right, now let's see what it looks like. This is for somebody with dark vision. This is what it's going to look like. They can still see, but the light definitely lights up some areas. I think that's a pretty cool effect. Areas are just pretty. It shouldn't be 100% because like not every light is working. Some of them should just be destroyed. Creating some darkened areas, which I think is cool. And then if you get somebody like Edmund who does not actually have dark vision at all, then it looks like this, where he can pretty much only see where the light is, where the light touches. I do recommend anytime you have somebody who has no dark vision whatsoever, give them 5 feet of dark vision. Because I feel like you should be able to see at least somewhat like right in front of you. And it really helps so that the character isn't literally completely blinded, especially if you put them in a dark place like right here. And they're like, I can't see anything around me, I guess I can't do anything, and roll 20. Like, give them like 5 feet of dark vision so they can at least see like immediately around their token. I think that goes a long way, and I didn't think I'd made that change until maybe, I think it might have been during Tomb of Annihilation, I can't remember, but I think that's been a really appreciated change. All right, because I don't see having to run a combat encounter before they get to an area. Let's call it streets. Especially because they're probably ending. Well, I know that they are ending Caves of Hunger with a battle, either the Nothic battle or the Vampire battle. They'll get a rest. And then the Causeway, I believe, doesn't have any combat. There is a map included for the Causeway in that same Doom of Ithrin. Or no, sorry, there isn't one. There was. Maybe it was something else that had the Causeway in it. But I don't see... There's a Dead Tomb Tapper. I don't know if I'll do that, actually, because it was killed by Drow Invaders. Tomb Tower looks like a faceless, misshapen giant turned to stone. It died on its big sledgehammer. I guess it kind of teases some of the dangers that you'll find. I think the cooler tease would be to see like footprints going back and forth. Keep it kind of creepy at first. Maybe hear like odd sounds, and I definitely want to do. Although I need to put that thing on the map. The fact that they can see, because the Causeway is probably going to give them their best vantage point. I really want to have them, you know, that classic scene where the characters, and RPGs do this very well, open world RPGs, where you step out of an area and you can actually see a lot of that area, and you're like, oh, look at all the cool things I can go do, and then you have to go and do the things. So I want the Causeway to actually be like an elevated point, because I do want to share this map to the players. We're going to be using this map completely. All these little annotations are of course on the GM layer, so only I can see them, but I plan on literally putting the players on this map so that they can see this layout And I'm going to justify that by saying you can basically just see that. So essentially, when you go down the Caves of Hunger, you exit this causeway tunnel, and this is like you're going. It's at an angle going down. So from the causeway, you can pretty much see this whole layout as you approach it. So that's how I'm going to justify it, because I think that's just going to work well. And what else am I going to fucking show them other than going from map to map? I think it really helps having that overview. And I did the same thing with Omu, as you recall. I think I had like a literally like a "You Are Here" style fucking mall map at the entrance where they were able to use the actual map. And in fact, I had a little. I need to borrow our D&D token, don't I, from the Icewind Dale map? I've not used this one in a while. Very useful, and we haven't used it since Caves of Hunger. There we go. You. Let's copy and paste you, and we'll use this same old dorky symbol we've had literally since our very first campaign. I think I've been using the same stupid little D&D token I threw together. There's more appropriate things. I could probably do some kind of composite group shot and put that in there. In fact, if somebody wants to make me one, I would probably use that. I've got a group shot, but it's all, you know, the 5 of us or 5 of them stretched out, and I would be able to fit that very well on a token. If we can create some kind of a like album cover with everybody kind of together, that would be pretty cute. The characters, obviously, and stick them in a little thing. I could probably do that. And enlarge that a bit just to kind of show where they are, that representative of them. All right, so where did I put picture? There it is. I'm at 100%. Let's see how Netflix did this. Did he crash? Did crash land into the ice after all? Yeah, exactly. I just like that thematically, that they can kind of see the whole layout, and you imagine like the cinematic music like swelling up majestically, or whatever musical motif we choose to use here. It's actually far larger than I need. I need to shrink your ass down. Assuming if I size it right, it will fit perfectly. This is gonna be so fucking cool. Some of y'all are just freaking wizards with Photoshop and whatnot. I just can't. I get so frustrated quickly anytime I have to do anything artsy wise. It is not at all my strong suit. Try to size this up. I think we're pretty close. A little bit smaller or bigger? Better find a point to size it to, I guess, is a smart thing to do. Nope, right. Oh, I see, and even cut out the tower right there. How clever is that? Pretty close, I think. It's like trying to size up the grid. Okay, I can see this part having to connect it right there. This is I'm gonna go so meticulous on this. It is such a good job. Okay, where am I? There's the rubble. It's gonna match. 100% zoom. Ah, that part's off now. I can't get it exactly fit. I'm sure. Okay, the top is now locked in. I think the bottom is fucking close. I don't know. I can't get it exact. It's gonna drive me crazy, but I think that's pretty close. I think that's within like the margin of error. Yeah, that's true, but I don't know. Hopefully we can just. Yeah, I guess that could have been the whole leg on there. I can't complain though. This thing is just awesome. Part isn't matched up. Why can I not get it matched up? I hope we don't have to work on the other things. This part needs to be shorter, but then that's gonna fuck up. I guess I could then lower this side after I make it shorter. That matches it. Ooh, that's pretty close. Every time we're gonna get a little bit closer. Yeah, that's awesome. And if I'm smart, I will put that on the map layer. Here we go. Okay. Now here's a good question. Do I do this first, or do I hide this and reveal it only when they approach? I think I'm tempted to have this already showing as a very clear indicator that this is the main zone. This is, you know, the final boss room. It's just locked behind an angry glowing red door. And they don't know how to get into it yet. That's something they'll have to discover. But clearly it's glowing very angrily. They'll be able to see the Mythalar. You can see in here, but you can't. It is an impassable barrier. You can't use magic. You can't use anything to get in here. The only thing you can do is follow this like tendril right here and realize that that's the door, which I'm hoping I can make. If the players don't figure that out, then clearly one of the NPCs with them will be able to speak up and maybe nudge them in the right direction. I need to be careful about not overstepping my grounds as a DM, having those NPCs and giving away all the information, though, because I tend to jump the gun on that. And I really need to let the players try and, you know, explore and figure things out on their own as best as they can. The causeway, they'll see this. Hopefully they'll get the idea to explore the Mythalar, or maybe they'll stop at these other areas first. You know, which is the Chain Lightning Stadium, which, you know, as written, we're going to keep how it works, but I think I may add some additional rules on it to make it a little bit more interesting. But I like the idea where it spawns a bunch of the Magians, and the players have to just compete in a game, or not. They can just watch it. They won't know until later, once they get the Tower of Evocation, that they actually do have to compete in the games and actually win in order to solve the Tower of Evocation. I forget where that one is located, but it's somewhere. Otherwise, we need to prep the Tower of Abjuration because it's right here in Y4. I've already got the road encounter map, which that, you know, pacing-wise, maybe when they're on their way to and from this entrance to learn that's what they have to do, I will run one of those street maps because this is obviously a great area to do that in. With one of these encounters, which is probably going to be, I could do some combination of Nothics because there's just a ton of Nothics running around. Or do one of my crazy Far Realm ideas. I'm going to have to create a whole custom table because I'm turning this area into a... In fact, doesn't Tasha's have stuff like that? Actually going to flip through Tasha's real quick and see. I remember they added some neat zone things. I have one that's like a Far Realm incursion, because it's pretty much exactly what I'm doing. Dungeon Master Tools. Supernatural Regions. Page 150. Can I look at it in Roll20? Can go Supernatural Region. Excellent. There we go. We can read along together. And I mean, it's kind of a region. It's basically, I'm wanting to make, you know, kind of portals and rips into the Far Realm appearing. I mean, the Arcane Blight is definitely a thing going on, which I'm probably going to keep as written. And these are, I think, these subheadings of the different regions. So we've got Blessed Radiance, which is a celestial one. Okay, here's Far Realm. I think the whole thing should be seen easily. Wizards are not usually subtle. That's a good point. And everything in Etherin should be destroyed or malfunctioning for the most part as well, or hideously transformed. Always travel beyond the place, dwell in the far realm. Transform eons into abominations or elder evils, seething in a reality with its own laws. All who stand the far will eventually twist into alien shapes by the realm's eldritch forces. Far realms of pernicious influence is often subtle, leaking into the material plane through thin places in reality. Exactly what I'm trying to do here, or as invasive thoughts that inspire life to propagate along alien paths. Okay. Yeah, definitely short rests and long rests could trigger stuff. And that's the easiest way to gauge time passing. Otherwise, it's really tricky to gauge time passing in terms of how often you should do things. Because a lot of the tables be like, okay, every time they spend an hour here, like, well, what is an hour? Like, combat takes like a minute, if that. In fact, probably less than a minute. How long does it actually take to explore and travel around and do all that? And rarely does it actually say like, hey, the players move at this speed, throughout the area, or it takes them. I think I mentioned the fact they can search. Let's see. Yeah, if they can explore a cautious rate of 200 feet every 5 minutes. Searching an unnumbered location takes 30 minutes. That's just if they speak up and say, we just want to search an area, and then they come up, there's their own little table they can find things at, which there's no penalty to, as far as I can tell, other than I think every hour you're supposed to roll on this random encounter table. Far realm effects. A structure in the region whispers faintly. Any creature within 60 feet of the structure that can hear it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be charmed. While charmed in this way, the creature must move towards the source of the whispering, avoiding obvious hazards. Reaches the source, it is incapacitated. The creature. Okay. So obviously you want to combine that with a combat encounter, because otherwise that's kind of just I guess you don't have to do all these, and you could just have creepy, flavorful ones. But that would be an interesting one. You could turn like the street or the building into a mimic too, or just unleash nothings and stuff while somebody's drawn creepily to a building. Elder Evil turns its into the region, opposing the pressure of its unfathomable presence upon the place. Any creature that finishes a rest in the region must succeed on a charisma saving throw or gains no benefit from finishing the rest. That is such a dick move. Instead, find strange scrawls, stacked stones, or its belongings arranged in intricate, abstruse patterns nearby. That's pretty creepy. Local plants and animals share malevolent intelligence. That's not quite applicable here. No, really going to be normal beasts. Galabder. Distance no longer functions in a comprehensible manner within the region. Creatures make ranged attacks with disadvantage, and the range of those attacks is halved. That's also something that has to be combined with combat. That would be interesting. Something attacks and all of a sudden this weird warping effect happens. You could have a number of different things if you really warp reality around them. Landscape melts into a mass of writhing flesh eyes and fanged mouths. When occupied space on fleshy ground, arise 1d4 plus 5 gibbering mouthers that attack any one sight. That's pretty good. I think at this point, gibbering mouthers are not very difficult for the party, and yet if you throw a bunch of them at them, that could be a delightful pain in the ass. They are a very cool looking creature, and they do have effects that I love on creatures, and is unfortunately very rare in 5e, which are ongoing effects that the party pretty much has to constantly deal with. In this case, within 20 feet, they have to make a wisdom save, or be, they can't take reactions, or they have to roll the dice and see what happens to them. So that is a pain in the ass if you have a number of those too. That's just a lot of saves they have to make. That's probably a good one to do, and I like the fact that just kind of the ground like erupts into masses. That's cool. Unintelligible murmurings threaten to overcome the mind of one random creature within the region. At the start of the creature's turn, it must succeed on a DC 13 intelligence save, or use its action to make a melee attack against the nearest creature it can see. That is something you could actually do without combat. That's just something you could have fuck with the players while they're walking around. Target spends its action babbling. There are no other creatures around. Bizarre appendages squirm beneath the ground and around trees or other structures in this area. This is what I was wanting to do for sure. I was going to have it ripped out of portals. Dozens of limbs burst forth, entangling anyone with a 30-foot sphere surrounding one random creature. Each creature in the sphere must succeed on a dex save or take bludgeoning damage and be restrained. That's awesome. Yeah. Essentially, that's probably similar to, is it Hunger of Hadar, or whatever the one that spawns tentacles in an area? Might be Hunger of Hadar. Creatures in the region can't leave it and find themselves covering the same ground over and over. By the time they realize this, 2d10 hours have passed during which they've made no progress in their effort to leave. Oh, that's a chance for them to just gain exhaustion. Okay. So another reality warping effect where they end up kind of in a weird Matrix deja vu thing. That's kind of a interesting idea. Keep writing these down. Of hunger. Nope, we're not in Caves of Hunger. Etherin. Alright, so the table, this is, call it Far Realm Incursions. I may make my own table based partly on this one. We liked having the appendages. Just copy this one for now. This one was probably good. This one was good. And was the very first one was being charmed by a structure whispering was kind of cool. And you could combine a lot of the reality warping ones. I think the exhaustion one is probably the best one I've seen, just because exhaustion's at least a unique one. And exhaustion's nice because, you know, a lot of them, they give you status effects like paralyzed or incapacitated, and none of that technically matters unless you're in combat, unless it's a long-term madness thing where it lasts for like several hours. Then it matters a lot. But exhaustion is uniquely, it's an ongoing long-term debuff, so it definitely matters in terms of inflicting that on players outside of combat. A random creature in the region hears strange whispers and must succeed on a DC 14 Wiz save or become charmed. Your focuses on copying the blasphemous designs that appear in the mind, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Unless restrained, the creature completes the design in 1 hour of work. When the creature finishes the work, it is no longer charmed, and a death slot appears within 30 feet of it and attacks anyone in sight. That's kind of random. Very random. You end up making a thing, and if you're done, then you spawn a death slot? PR10, that's no joke either. One little mini boss fight, jeez. Wow. Unless restrained, so you have to literally restrain them. How do you cure them? I guess just maybe it like ends after an hour. That'd be funny if the players just sit around like, all right, let's see what he does. And then I would imagine you like make something like a little person, and then that person like explodes in a death slot or something. Natural features and structures in the region writhe to spell out words and form strange symbols. Any creature tries to read the message, make a DC 20 Arcana check. A success, the creature gains insight as if it had cast the contact other plane spell. On a failure, the creature's effect is if it failed a saving throw against the confusion spell. Interesting. In this region, circular things seem appallingly wrong. When a creature starts to turn, the region must succeed on an intelligence save or spend their turn loudly trying to destroy these objects. Okay, it's very specific. Glaring eyes which weep viscid. I don't think I've ever seen that word in my life. Viscid? Is that a word? Viscid? It is a word. It means sticky. Yeah, I've heard viscous. Huh, alright. Well, I learned something. I'm sure that'll appear on Wordle at some point. I'm like, man, I'm glad I saw. No, it's not. It's too many letters actually. Appear on inanimate objects throughout the region. The eyes watch the characters, and creatures in the region can't be surprised by the characters as long as the eyes exist. Eyes watch the characters, and creatures within the region can't be surprised by the characters. Okay, so if they were surprising somebody. My party, that's a neat idea. My party never thinks to ambush anybody. I like that as a maybe non-combat effect, though. And I feel like that should be some of the things that happen, or not like non super, just flavor effects. I think that could go a long way. So it can't all be like terribly debilitating. A Terran reality creates a rift in the region, which is what all of these are going to be spawning from. Similar to the spell Gate that passes the far realm and connects the random plane. Any creature that enters the rift takes 10d10 psychic damage from the horrors of the far realm and appears in empty space closest to the rift's opening on another plane. Wow. I didn't think about the rifts themselves doing damage. Instead, it's going to be, I'm flavoring that all these things are coming out of rifts, and not that it's the... So it wouldn't be necessarily... I guess I could make it so like buildings and whisper and eyes appear, but only when those far realm portals appear. So I want to make it pretty obvious that A, the Mythalar is... the malfunctioning Mythalar is what's spawning these far realm incursions, and then where those far realm incursions are appearing is where these weird effects are happening. I could even go so far as to make it really video gamey and have it like appear on the map to like different spots on the map, as if you could like tell where these dangerous elements are. But I think scripted wise, it's just going to be, whenever they go to certain encounters, they may see. I'm going to play it like they're seeing these in the distance, and then however much pacing I want to do, then that's one that will happen to appear whenever they're near an area, and it will spawn on them. We can look at filling out the Tower of Abjuration. I'm gonna cut the. I think I'm gonna cut the prison altogether. I see that being useful, and unfortunately, this tower just has like, you basically just scale the tower, and there's maybe a magic item on top, which I could maybe keep that, or maybe some scrolls or something, just to make it a fancy little witty-twitty tower that you can explore. What was Y29? Did I look at that? Right in front of the Mythalar building. Y29 is the museum. I have a map for that. Museum. Check in guide. I do not have a map for that one. I've got a map for the Arboretum, the Wellspring of Answers, and for the Mythalar itself. And I've obviously got all the maps for the towers. I do not have one for the museum, though. Partial hexagonal building around the glittering domed roof. Characters who venture inside the museum find that statues and other objects of art have fallen from their plinths and lie in broken shards across the floor. 6 Nothics are searching the lower level of the museum for relics. When they detect the entry of intruders, they converge on them and attack out of hunger. Man, this is a whole little mini dungeon, and there's no maps for this. You could almost turn this into a dungeon, although it would be entirely optional because there's no. I don't think it's associated with the main quest at all. Some, as I mentioned, like with the Tower of Evocation and the Chain Lightning Stadium, some of them do a good job of tying in other locations. And the other one, what was the other one? Oh, the Tower of, is it Divination, I believe? Actually uses the observatory location and puts it in the Tower of Divination, so it kind of combines those two. But otherwise, maybe I could just have a bonus optional dungeon, make it a true like little open world city. Characters ascend the stairs to the upper level come across the following display. Suspended from the ceiling of a spacious 50-foot square chambers, the glittering frost-covered corpse of a 30-foot-long aberration shaped like a funnel resembling an anemone. Dead creature is a magically preserved Farum, suspended from the ceiling by a dozen strong wires. The characters wipe away the frost on the plaque. They can read about what it says about the Farum in Draconic. Billion rounding of 4-limbed spindly appendages, each one in a clawed hand. The opposite end of the body is a tail with a stinger. Dwellers the Underdark Farum are malevolent aberrations that are master spellcasters highly resistant to magic. They use their telepathy to control the weak-minded. They strive to erase all their beings from existence and to have caused the collapse of the Suruk Empire of Istosif. What the fuck is that word? ISSTOSSEFFIFIL. Fuck you, game. They use their tail stingers to inject their eggs into alien hosts. Huh. Okay. I don't think that has any context other than the Farum were around in ancient times. I don't think this still exists in modern times. Somebody who maybe knows more about Forgotten Realms lore can help me with that. I wonder if it'd be worth changing that to something that the party might face in Ithrin because of the Far Realm incursions that are happening, and maybe they get more of an explanation of like why they're happening. Maybe the Netherese dealt with these things before or tried to contact them before or something. As far as I know, there's no stat block for this creature in existence. P-H-A-E-R. Pronounce it. P-H-A. Yep. There's not. I'm sure third-party folks have done as well, or I could probably find a reasonable facsimile through another kind of creature, which is probably what I'll end up doing. I'll probably swap that for something else as a tease for maybe some Far Realm creature that they will come across. I'll just have to come up with something that's suitably Shoggoth-y, I guess. Probably Tomb of Beasts will come through for me. Characters who proceed further into the upper floor can see the museum's dome ceiling still intact and a sight to behold. An image of Erarthos at the height of his power, magically preserved in stained glass that glows its own arcane light. 8 large portraits adorn the walls beneath the dome, depicting the 8 apprentices known as the Wizards of the Ebon Star. Portraits hang 20 feet above the ground, and a frost-covered plaque sticks to the wall just beneath each one. So you can meet all the, I guess, recognize all of them. And something I plan on doing is making Auril one of them. I actually haven't nailed down which one she is, or was, I should say. I would assume something that would have to do with transforming, so maybe the transmuter. I guess any of them could draw power from the Mythalar. Okay, so there's no treasure in here. I could add a little mini dungeon crawl though. I'd have to throw together all the maps to do it. But that could be interesting. It put some. It doesn't have any main quest context other than learning information, and I can put some treasure in there. I mean, a museum, clearly should have some good treasures. God, what would be a museum for these guys? Like, this is already an old 2,000-year-old civilization. But as far as I'm aware, there are no maps for this, so I'd have to come up with an inside building map and a museum at that. That would be a tricky one to throw together. Damn, and it's one of the early ones I'll have to do because I'm basically planning on having to come up with obviously an explanation for when they come up to this building and realize they can't get in there. Make sure to have notes on Y6, which is the entrance gate, and again make it pretty obvious that this is the proper way to get into this building, but it's magically sealed and locked and you have to go to all the towers. And then clearly have this one, Y4, which is the Tower of Abjuration, have that be one of their first towers that they get to. It's right there. Make sure we have the Chain Lightning Stadium as well. I do have a map for the Arboretum, oddly enough, and that is... The Arboretum is another good location, actually, now I think about it. When they get the Rite of the Octad, one of the clues is... they have to hold a wand crafted from the Nether Oak over your heart. Maybe they don't know where the Nether Oak is, but you can clearly see trees right here, so maybe look at the clue. That's actually the first one they get, so the first clue from the Tower of Abjuration is that one, so that might actually motivate them to go this direction to go to the Arboretum next. Maybe they'll end up going in a big clockwise formation. I'm just trying to be smart about like what exactly I need to plan, because obviously I don't need to build every single tower and every single thing all at once. We need to try to maximize my time efficiency and come up with a radius of areas that they're gonna jump into first. I believe is Abjuration step 1. I need to actually remember which one is which step. And this one, the one from Towers of Magic, is actually very, very similar, almost exactly to what's written in the book. I don't actually see a whole lot of differences. You have to destroy a magic item, and I think doing that... I think the main difference is the anvil actually tells them the right of the Octad versus just getting it from the inscription on the ceiling. Shield thy heart with a wand from the Nether Oak. So I need to, when they get to the door at Y6, have it written in Draconic, like a normal like rules sign to be posted on this thing. Entrance is strictly prohibited. You know what I could do, actually, now that I thought about having Herodotus, talk via the magic mouth. So maybe it would be like an automatic magic mouth appearing if you want to get really like Magic City about everything. Instead of a written thing, maybe just a mouth appears and repeats the instructions. And obviously have it speak in Laros, which I think if you know Elvish, you can understand. Have it just say, entrance to the spire is strictly prohibited. Only those who perform the rite of the arcane Octad and are permitted entry or something. And then I'll still have the visual aid of the 8 different symbols of magic, which are going to be like grayed out or something, like make it really obvious. And then once the players start doing that, then they can perform the thing they need to do. And I'd probably make it where there's like a time limit, so it's, well, I don't know. Does it actually mention the fact if you can do one and then just move on for a couple hours and come back and like do another one, or do you have to do it all at once? Or does it really matter? I mean, some of them you have to like, consume poison, so some of those would kind of matter if you have, I guess that's the last one though. Speak a secret about yourself aloud, that one's kind of fun. One must perform the rite of the arcane Octad on the spire's doorstep. Once the inscriptions are translated and assembled in order, the 8 steps of the ritual become clear. Translate the inscriptions found there. Oh, I guess because they're all written in Draconic. Or told to you in some cases. The ritual is designed to test visitors' magical aptitude and can be performed without casting spells. For example, an adventurer could light a handful of lamp oil to summon a flame. If each performs all these steps of the ritual in the correct order outside the spire, can pass through the force field thereafter. So technically, it doesn't actually mention the fact if you have to do it all at once or you can come back in time, but I would probably treat it like you would a video game puzzle, where it's like it gives you, you start doing the puzzle and it gives you a chance, and then if nothing happens, maybe things like dim out again or something. And I would try to make it obvious to the players too, like, okay, you do that, it lights up and you wait for like a minute, and then nothing else happens, and then it goes back to dim. And like, okay, well this one works, and then we need to go get the other ones. So again, try to make things, intuitive while still being immersed in, everything. And I appreciate like a lot of modern game design that doesn't try to obfuscate a lot of the things that the players need to do, and just rely on the gameplay and the world to give you that immersion. I think that's been my goal with all my games, really, and I think especially here at Ethrin, I'm going to try to make it so they understand their main quest, the stakes at hand, hopefully fairly early on, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty of exploring around this area. And the nice thing is, the Lost City thing does check the box that a lot of dungeon crawls do, which is it gives the keys of exploration back to the players, which we just had a big dungeon crawl, so they've already done that a lot. But this one especially, like, they are in total control of where they want to go, even if they want to split the party, which would be very dangerous, but could happen. which things they want to tackle first. Like, that is completely up to them. The only caveat, and it's one that I appreciate again from a lot of video game design, is that you can't just waltz up to the boss room and enter that. So you have to perform all the other 8 steps of the towers first. You have to go do all the things before you can get to the final dungeon. Unlike, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which does unlock the final boss right at the beginning, and you can waltz in there and do it if you want, and it just becomes weakened if you do all the other things. In this case, you do not actually have access to it until you do all those 8 things. Then you can make your way into the final boss area and then into the Mythallar, and that'll be the last things that we prep. Exciting stuff. I think Aether's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of work, mainly because of the map stuff, and then there's a lot of extra story context going on here, but I think it's going to be really worth it. I've been able to rest on my laurels for Caves of Hunger, mostly running it as is, and now we get to Aether, and it's going to be back to me, making a lot of little changes and adjustments and additions here and there, but I think it's going to be a really satisfying finale, and I'm looking forward to it. I think that is going to do it for this Thursday edition of Crafting Icewind Dale. However, if you enjoy the content, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, William, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Brian, William, David, Corey, Coa, 1337, Matthew, Big Nut, John, Infernus, Chris, Scott, and Gene. Gold patrons RPG, Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard, Lion, Sam, Limpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott, Refus, Carolyn, Anna, William. Thank you all very much for your support. If you are a patron player, I will see that has signed up for our Patreon DD game. I will see you tonight. The rest of you, I'll see you tomorrow.